Welcome to the world of science fiction stories, and don't forget to like, share and subscribe my channel. Enjoy the listening. Aliens called for help, but humanity's reply shocked the galaxy. The villains, those poor unfortunate souls. Oh, how the mighty have tumbled, huh? Sorry, not sorry for the lack of sympathy, but when you've spent your entire civilization building crystal spires and philosophical treatises while completely ignoring practical matters like, oh, I don't know, defense systems, you're practically begging the universe to kick you where it hurts. Commander Nyx Viridian stood at the viewing platform, her four arms crossed in various positions of dismay as she stared at the massive crack spreading across Vexel Prime's atmosphere. The fracture glowed an angry red against the otherwise serene purple sky, a constant reminder of their impending doom. How long? She asked, not bothering to look at Science Officer Trell Luminar, who nervously tapped his data pad. 87 rotations, Commander. Maybe 90 if the atmospheric stabilizers hold. But that's optimistic, Trell's voice cracked. Actually, that's a complete fabrication meant to make us feel better. 75 rotations is more accurate. Spectacular. Nyx sighed dramatically. Our ancestors spent 10,000 years developing the perfect society, complete with mandatory meditation breaks and mood-sensitive architecture, and not one of them thought, hey, maybe we should prepare for asteroid storms. Brilliant. The Villians had evolved on a sheltered world, third from their sun, blessed with stable weather and bountiful resources. Their species developed 4 arms, iridescent skin that changed colors with their emotions, currently a distressed shade of gray-blue for most, and advanced cerebral capabilities. They'd solved their social problems centuries ago, eliminated poverty, disease, and conflict. Their biggest societal debate for the past 300 years had been whether poetry should be composed in 7-syllable verses or 9. And now they were facing extinction because no one had bothered to look up. The cosmic barrage, as it was now dramatically called in every news feed, because apparently even apocalypses needed catchy names, had begun 3 months ago. A previously undetected asteroid field had drifted into their solar system, and the first massive rock had struck their artificial moon, shattering it. The resulting debris had damaged their atmosphere, and subsequent asteroid impacts were making everything exponentially worse. Commander, the Council is requesting your presence, announced Communications Officer Pax Meridian, her skin flushed an anxious yellow. They're actually demanding it. With exclamation points. Ooh, exclamation points. How terrifying. Nyx rolled all 4 of her eyes simultaneously, a skill she'd perfected during endless council meetings. Did they send their message on scented stationery too? The Velian High Council, 12 of the oldest and supposedly wisest members of their species, had spent the first month of the crisis debating the ethical implications of altering the natural course of space objects. By the time they'd finally approved defensive measures, their orbital platforms were too damaged to function. Nyx strode through the crystal corridors of the command center, passing Vylans in various states of panic or denial. Some clutched personal shields, completely useless against atmospheric collapse but apparently comforting, others formed meditation circles, humming tunes meant to harmonize with the universe's chaos. Right, because cosmic harmony had worked so well for them thus far. Commander. Chief Engineer Zara Quasar intercepted her, looking uncharacteristically disheveled. I've run every simulation possible. Our evacuation ships can only accommodate 28% of the population, and we have supplies for maybe a quarter rotation of space travel. Fantastic. We can save a quarter of our people, who will then starve to death while floating aimlessly through space. That's certainly an improvement. Zara's skin shifted to a deep purple of embarrassment. The Villian ships were designed for scientific exploration and diplomatic missions. They were never intended for mass exodus or survival. Common sense, Nyx threw all 4 hands up. Yes, I'm aware our entire civilization is built on impractical beauty and philosophical navel-gazing. As she approached the council chambers, Nyx composed herself. Despite her frustration, she was still a commander responsible for billions of lives. If there was any hope of saving her people, she needed to convince the council to take drastic measures. "We have one option left," she muttered to herself. "And they're going to hate it." But desperation made for strange decisions, and the Velans had never been more desperate. The Velan High Council chamber, with its absurdly high ceilings and acoustics designed to make every statement sound profound, had never felt so suffocating. 12 ancient Velans in flowing robes, color-coordinated to their emotional states, naturally, stared down at Commander Nix from their elevated semicircular platform. "So, let me summarize our situation," Nix began, not bothering with the traditional 47-word formal greeting. "Our atmosphere is failing, our evacuation ships are inadequate, our defense systems are non-existent, and we have approximately 75 rotations until extinction. Have I missed anything?" High Counselor Orion Celestis, his skin a troubled mauve, cleared his throat. "You've missed the proper greeting protocols, Commander Vidian." "Oh, for the love of," Nix caught herself. "With all due respect, Counselor, perhaps we could skip the pleasantries while our world is literally cracking apart." "Protocol maintains civilization in times of crisis," intoned Counselor Luna Astries, her voice wavering despite her attempted authority. Nix wondered if banging her head against the crystal podium would be considered a resignation. "What maintains civilization is survival, counselors." She activated her data pad, projecting a hologram of their solar system. "We've exhausted all internal solutions. Our technology cannot repair the atmospheric damage fast enough. Our ships cannot evacuate enough people or travel far enough. We need external help." The council chamber erupted in gasps. Counselor Phoenix Galax's skin turned a scandalized pink. "You suggest contacting other species?" he asked, as if Nix had proposed eating their young. "Yes. We need to send a distress signal. An SOS. We know there are other civilizations out there. Our long-range scans have detected artificial structures on multiple worlds. But we've never made contact," protested Counselor Vega Pulsar. "The great philosophy teaches that we must achieve perfect enlightenment before engaging with other sentient beings." Nix laughed. She couldn't help it. The sound bounced around the chamber, sharp and jarring against the usual measured tones. "And how enlightened will we be when we're all dead? Besides, which is more enlightened, preserving our cultural purity or saving billions of lives?" Science Officer Trell stepped forward, thankfully interrupting before Nix could cause more offense. "Counselors, we've identified several potential civilizations within signal range. The closest appears to be from a planet called Earth. Their technology seems unrefined but functional." "Unrefined?" Counselor Orion's skin wrinkled in distaste. "They use combustion engines and physical projectiles," Trell explained apologetically. "But they've reached their moon, established orbital stations, and their communication technology is surprisingly sophisticated." Chief Engineer Zarek joined them, her skin shifting nervously between green and blue. "I've modified our quantum beacon array. We can send a concentrated signal to their system with detailed information about our situation and coordinates. If they're advanced enough to interpret it and benevolent enough to respond." The words hung in the air. Asking strangers for help went against everything the Velian believed about self-sufficiency and cultural isolation. "And if these Earthlings are hostile?" asked Counselor Luna. Nix gestured toward the viewing window, where the ominous red crack spiderwebbed across their sky. "What choice do we have? Die with certainty or risk survival?" After 6 hours of debate, which Nix considered miraculously brief by council standards, they reached their decision. The vote was 8-4 in favor of sending the signal. "This is either the salvation or the final mistake of our civilization," Counselor Orion intoned gravely as he authorized the transmission. Nix watched as Zara activated the quantum beacon, sending their desperate plea across the stars. "Well," Nix muttered to Trell, "now we get to see if anyone's listening." The signal shot out from Vexil Prime, carrying with it the fate of an entire species. 74 rotations remained. In the bustling chaos of NASA's Deep Space Communication Complex outside of Canberra, Australia, Dr. Morgan Riley was having a spectacularly awful day. First, the coffee machine had broken, then her carefully arranged stack of research papers had been knocked over by an enthusiastic intern, and now the anomaly detection system was going haywire, blaring alerts that made absolutely no sense. "Someone please shut that thing up before I use it for target practice," she groaned, rubbing her temples. "Jonah, what's triggering it this time? Another pulsar burp? Space dust on the lens? The ghost of Voyager 1 coming back to haunt us?" Jonah Campbell, signal processing specialist with a penchant for Hawaiian shirts even in Australian winter, was staring at his monitor with his mouth hanging open. "Morgan, it's a pattern. A complex, repeating pattern with embedded data." His fingers flew across the keyboard. "This isn't random. This isn't natural. This is... Holy smokes. Spit it out, Campbell. It's a message. From space. Not our space, not from any of our satellites or probes. From somewhere else." The room went silent except for the continued wailing of the alarm. "If this is your idea of a joke," Morgan began. "Look." Morgan leaned over his shoulder as data streamed across the screen. Unbelievably complex mathematical sequences resolved themselves into what appeared to be coordinates, technical specifications, and most incredibly, images of beings with 4 arms and strange architecture, images of a planet with a massive fracture in its atmosphere. "What the actual?" Morgan whispered. "It's an SOS, Jonas said, his voice trembling with excitement. "A literal alien SOS. They're dying, Morgan. Their world is dying." Within hours, the signal had been verified by 3 other listening stations. Within a day, the UN Security Council had convened an emergency session. Within 3 days, the most bizarre and unprecedented global cooperation in human history had begun. "They want our help." General Helena Vasquez of the United Nations Space Command laughed during the briefing. "They're sending distress signals to humans. To humans. The species that still can't agree on pizza toppings or which way toilet paper should hang. Apparently, we're the closest technologically capable species," replied Dr. Blake Thompson, astrophysicist and newly appointed head of the Holy Crap Aliens Are Real Response Team, not its official name, but the one everyone was using. "Do they know who they're asking?" asked someone in the back. Dr. Thompson grinned. "No, and that might be their biggest mistake or their greatest stroke of luck. Because if there's one thing humans love more than fighting each other, it's showing off what we can do when we actually work together." And just like that, Operation Stellar Samaritan was born. The next 3 weeks witnessed something unprecedented in human history, people actually cooperating without spending half the time arguing about who deserved credit. Well, mostly. "You're telling me we're going to retrofit 7 spacecraft, develop atmospheric repair technology we don't even have, and travel to another solar system in less than 2 months?" President Eleanor Chen slammed her hand on the conference table. "That's impossible." "Normally, yes, Dr. Thompson nodded, adjusting his glasses. "But this is humanity faced with the ultimate challenge, proving we're not the cosmic losers everyone assumes we are. The Emergency Global Coalition, now nicknamed Team Earth by social media, had commandeered every major space facility on the planet. SpaceX, NASA, ESA, CNSA, and Roscosmos engineers were working side by side, their decades-old rivalries forgotten in the rush of adrenaline and impossibility. The VLAN transmission included detailed specifications of their atmospheric composition and the damage, explained Dr. Leila Patel, atmospheric scientist and now head of the Fix Their Air division. "We've actually been developing similar technology to repair our own ozone layer. The principles are surprisingly compatible, just need to scale up by about 8,000%. No biggie. Her laugh had a slightly manic edge. Around the world, factories were retooled overnight. Defense budgets were rerouted. Billionaires' pet projects were commandeered. Politicians who had been at each other's throats were suddenly best friends, united by the shared goal of showing off human ingenuity to the rest of the galaxy. The best part, chuckled Jonah Campbell during a rare break, demolishing his fifth energy drink, is that these aliens picked us because we were the closest civilization with adequate technology. Can you imagine? They probably think we're their last resort, the interstellar equivalent of asking that weird neighbor you never talk to for a cup of sugar. In Houston, General Vasquez oversaw the crew selection. We need the best pilots, engineers, scientists, and a diplomat, I suppose. A diplomat? Colonel Roby Singh raised an eyebrow. Someone who can communicate with four-armed aliens without causing an interspecies incident. Preferably someone who doesn't laugh at the concept of mood-changing skin colors. The crew selection became a global obsession. Children skipped school to watch the announcements. Office workers streamed the training sessions. Merchandise appeared overnight, action figures of astronauts who hadn't even launched yet, t-shirts with slogans like Earth, saving alien butts since 2025, and humans, not just good for reality TV anymore. The spacecraft themselves were marvels of hasty engineering. The ISS was partially dismantled to provide components. Experimental fusion engines were installed without the usual decades of testing. Engineers duct-taped solutions together, sometimes literally, while muttering, this would never pass inspection in normal circumstances. But these weren't normal circumstances. These were the circumstances where humanity finally had a chance to prove itself to the cosmos. 42 days after receiving the signal, the fleet was ready. 7 ships, christened with names like Good Neighbor, Cosmic Cavalry, and Hold My Beer, were prepared for launch, each carrying atmospheric repair technology, medical supplies compatible with Velian physiology, according to their transmitted data, and crews of the most skilled and slightly unhinged volunteers Earth had to offer. We've got 29 days to reach them, announced Captain Maru Takahashi, commander of the lead ship, before their atmosphere completely fails. Anyone want to back out? The silence was her answer. Then let's go make first contact and try not to embarrass our species too much. The launches began, live-streamed to 11 billion people holding their breath. Humanity's response to an alien SOS was underway, and the universe was about to learn an important lesson: never underestimate the species that turned, hold my beer and watch this, into an entire cultural ethos. 28 rotations after sending their desperate plea into space, the Vexians detected 7 unknown objects entering their solar system. The observation team nearly crashed their monitoring systems in their rush to alert Commander Nix. Impossible, breathed Nix, staring at the readings. They couldn't have responded this quickly. No civilization has that kind of technology. They're approaching at speeds we've never recorded before, Trell confirmed, his skin shifting to an astonished shade of turquoise. And they're communicating in our language patterns. The Violent Council chamber, usually a place of measured discourse and philosophical meanderings, erupted into chaotic babbling as the news spread. The aliens had responded, actually responded, and they were arriving with not 1 ship but 7. They must be an ancient, highly advanced civilization, Counselor Orion theorized, his skin a reverent gold. Perhaps they possessed the enlightenment we've been seeking for millennia. Nix had ordered their remaining functional satellites to capture images of the approaching vessels. What they revealed caused her to burst into unexpected laughter. Ancient and highly advanced. Not exactly, she choked out. The human ships looked like they'd been assembled by particularly enthusiastic children given access to a scrapyard, mismatched panels, exposed structural elements, and what appeared to be actual cloth coverings on some sections. One ship had writing on its side that their translation systems rendered as Space Roadside Assistance. They're hailing us, announced Communications Officer Pax, sounding bewildered. The main view screen flickered to life, revealing a human face. The being had only 2 arms visible, skin that didn't change colors at all. How did they communicate emotions, and facial features that seemed simultaneously familiar and alien? "Greetings, people of Vexel Prime," the human said, smiling to reveal alarmingly white teeth. "I'm Captain Maru Takahashi of Earth's Interstellar Response Fleet. We got your SOS. The cavalry has arrived." Nick stepped forward, performing the abbreviated greeting gesture. "I am Commander Nix Viridian of the Violin Command." You actually came." "Of course we came," Takahashi replied, as if it were the most obvious thing in the universe. "You were in trouble." "We had ships." "Well, we didn't exactly have ships ready, but we made them. Fast. Really fast. Like, probably too fast for proper safety protocols, but hey, here we are." The human's casual, rapid speech pattern left the Velans struggling to keep up. The council members behind Nix were turning various shades of bewilderment. "Your journey should have taken years," Trell interjected, unable to contain his scientific curiosity. "Yeah, about that," Takahashi grinned wider, running a hand through her short black hair. "We kind of invented a new propulsion system. Or maybe, cobbled together, is more accurate. Our engineers have been sleeping in 3-hour shifts for weeks, fueled by coffee and the absolute terror of testing experimental engines in space. But the good news is they worked. Mostly." Nix noticed something in the background of the human vessel, what appeared to be adhesive tape holding together a control panel. "Is that tape?" she asked, unable to stop herself. "Duct tape," confirmed another human, popping into view with an alarming lack of protocol. "Holds the universe together. Literally in this case. I'm Dr. Riley, by the way. We brought atmosphere stabilization technology. Should fix your sky-cracking problem." The Violin Council was rendered speechless. These were their saviors. Beings who used adhesives as structural components and spoke of their emergency response as if describing a casual outing. Nix found herself caught between horror and hope. "Our atmospheric degradation has accelerated. We have approximately 47 rotations remaining before complete failure." "Perfect," exclaimed Captain Takahashi. "We brought enough supplies for 50 Earth days. Cutting it close, just how we like it. Permission to enter orbit and send down landing teams." Behind Nix, Counselor Orion had turned a shade of purple previously unseen in Violin society, somewhere between shocked and offended, but he nodded weakly. As the communication ended, Nix turned to her team. "Prepare for their arrival and perhaps remove any particularly fragile cultural artifacts from the landing area. Something tells me our guests might be a bit enthusiastic." Within hours, human shuttles were descending through the fractured atmosphere, bringing with them Earth's uniquely chaotic brand of assistance. The Grand Crystal Plaza of Vexel Prime had been meticulously prepared for the formal welcoming ceremony. Fragile sculptures had been removed as Commander Nix suggested. Meditation fountains had been temporarily deactivated. The council had spent 6 hours selecting the perfect ceremonial robes, settling on a cautious blue meant to convey serenity and gratitude. What no one had prepared for was the sheer volume of humans. "Wow, this architecture is amazing," exclaimed Dr. Jackson Barnes, Earth's cultural liaison, his voice echoing painfully through the acoustically perfect chamber. "The crystalline structures must have taken centuries to grow." The Velin greeting party winced collectively. Their sensitive hearing, evolved for detecting subtle harmonic changes, was being assaulted by what seemed like deliberate sonic warfare. "Please," Counselor Luna whispered, her skin paling to a distressed white. "Modulate your voice tones. Our hearing is quite..." "Oh. Sorry." Dr. Barnes shouted even louder, then caught himself. "Sorry," he repeated in what humans might consider a whisper but still registered as conversational volume to Velans. "Cultural differences noted." Captain Takahashi stepped forward, attempting a formal Velian greeting gesture that looked more like she was swatting at invisible flies. We're honored to be welcomed into your, wow, is that ceiling actually responding to emotional energy? That's wild. The human delegation seemed constitutionally incapable of maintaining focus or following the carefully planned ceremonial sequence. They asked questions mid-ritual, took photographs with devices that emitted alarming flashes of light, and kept touching things, touching cultural artifacts with their bare hands. Our engineers would like to begin atmospheric repair immediately, continued Takahashi, while behind her, a human in an orange jumpsuit was surreptitiously scanning a sacred meditation crystal with some beeping device. Nix, watching Counselor Orion's skin cycle through increasingly alarmed color patterns, stepped in. Perhaps we should move to the technical briefing area. The Council has prepared 3 days of cultural exchange protocols before beginning any work, so that we may properly. 3 days, interrupted Chief Engineer Maya Rodriguez, looking up from her tablet. Your atmosphere will lose another 4.2% integrity in that time. We really should start, like, yesterday. The Villian Council gasped at the interruption. In 10,000 years of civilization, no one had ever interrupted a council member mid-sentence. Our cultural protocols require proper ceremonial, began Counselor Orion. With all due respect, Rodriguez continued, not appearing to notice she was committing a grave social transgression, your cultural protocols won't matter much if everyone suffocates. The atmospheric stabilizers need to be positioned at specific coordinates in your upper atmosphere, and we need to start manufacturing replacement components for your damaged systems. The humans had already begun unpacking equipment, large, inelegant machines with exposed gears and handwritten labels. Some components appeared to be held together with the mysterious, duct tape, substance, and others made alarmingly non-harmonic sounds.